It's been some time since the events of the Second World Warrior tournament where M. Bison, the leader of the criminal cartel Shadaloo, was thought to have met his end at the hands of Akuma, only for the megalomaniac dictator to escape death once again. During the time between Bison's third death and his eventual return, the power vacuum left from his death leads to Seth, one of Bison's many replacement bodies, going rogue and taking control of the Shadaloo Intimidation Network, S.I.N for short, and waging a war against the remnants of Shadaloo in order to gain control over the entire world. In order to gain the data and power needed to achieve this goal, Seth hosts a new fighting tournament in the hopes of gaining the data needed to fuel the police machine, a mysterious creation of S.I.N's. As a means of gaining the power needed to stand above humanity, Seth hopes to lure the wandering fighter Ryu to his tournament in order to steal his highly powerful data. With the announcement of a new tournament, many fighters across the world race to compete, all having their own reasons and goals for entering. As the competitors gather, many begin clashing with each other in order to gain a lead in the tournament and eventually claim victory over Seth and S.I.N. Having entered the tournament alongside her ally Guile to stop Seth and S.I.N from wreaking havoc across the world, the Interpol agent Chun-Li soon runs into Crimson Viper, a known operative of S.I.N's. Chun-Li faces Viper and tries to take her in for questioning, unaware that Viper is actually a double agent working for the CIA to take down S.I.N. Viper voices her displeasure at Interpol interfering with her operation and tells Chun-Li to stay out of her business. When Chun-Li refuses, her and Viper clash in a heated battle, with Viper managing to gain the victory. Viper leaves the defeated Chun-Li behind and moves on in the tournament, advising the Interpol agent to stay away from her. Defeated but not willing to abandon her pursuit of S.I.N, Chun-Li continues on in the tournament where she eventually runs into none other than Gen, a retired assassin and a friend of Chun-Li's father, Dorai. Chun-Li tells Gen that this time she'll get him to reveal his knowledge of her father's disappearance many years ago, feeling that Gen had some part in it. Gen accepts Chun-Li's challenge, telling her that he won't hold back against the child of Dorai. The two fight, and Gen too is able to defeat Chun-Li. The two then part ways, with Gen refusing to confide in his failed attempt at saving Chun-Li's father. Following her losses, Chun-Li eventually manages to track down Juri Han, another agent of S.I.N's. Juri taunts Chun-Li for her continued attempts at trying to apprehend her, but Chun-Li stands strong and tells Juri that one way or another she'll be coming with her. The two then fight, and Chun-Li is able to defeat Juri, but Juri manages to escape before Chun-Li can arrest her. Despite failing to capture Juri, Chun-Li continues on in the tournament. Meanwhile, the US Air Force Major Guile rushes through an Amazon jungle as he chases a lead on a possible sighting of M. Bison. Bison, however, soon decides to confront Guile and appears through a portal to face him, having grown tired of being chased. The two fight, and Guile is able to defeat the weakened Bison, but Bison manages to escape before Guile can finish the job. Despite being frustrated at once again having let Bison slip through his grasp, Guile continues on in the tournament. Seth decides to personally enter his own tournament in order to collect as much data as he can on the competitors. One such competitor that Seth faces is the Turkish oil wrestler Hakan, who exclaims in horror at the floating Seth. Hakan assumes Seth to be a new S.I.N weapon, but Seth ignores him and shows intrigue in Hakan's unusual fighting style. Seth voices his desire to assimilate Hakan's moveset into data for the police machine, but Hakan simply chastises Seth for acting all high and mighty and challenges him to a fight, unaware of Seth's true and powerful nature. The two clash and Seth easily defeats Hakan, but decides to let him live as payment for the useful data he obtained from him. Soon after, Seth is confronted by the amnesiac Abel, who recognizes Seth's face as being eerily similar to his own. Assuming that Seth is with Shadaloo, Abel introduces himself with the hopes of finding out who he is. Seth is shocked to discover that he indeed knows who Abel is, calling him the imperfect one who fled. Abel is shocked that Seth knows who he is, but instead of getting any answers, he is challenged to a fight by Seth, who tells him that the outside world has softened him. The two then clash in battle, with Seth defeating Abel. Intrigued by the nature of Abel, Seth decides to let him live, and leaves Abel to ponder over his possible links to Seth. Sometime later, Abel is encountered by Zangief, who notices Abel's obvious confusion following his encounter with Seth. Zangief offers to fight Abel in order to get his mind off of whatever's bothering him, telling him that fighting is the best thing to do when life gets you down. Abel, too stunned to question Zangief, engages him in a fight, but Zangief manages to defeat the distracted Abel. Despite his current predicament, however, Abel feels a sense of ease following his fight against Zangief and thanks him before the two continue on their respective journeys. Soon after, Abel is stunned when he runs into the movie star Fei Long, who Abel is a big fan of. Abel asks to fight Fei Long, which she agrees to. When Abel asks Fei Long if he's serious, Fei Long angrily tells Abel that he won't repeat himself and gets ready to fight. The two battle, with Fei Long emerging as the victor. Abel is grateful for the chance to fight one of his idols and continues on his journey, leaving Fei Long to do the same. Abel eventually travels to an airfield where he witnesses Guile practicing his signature sonic booms. Abel is astonished upon seeing Guile perform the move, having had a vague memory of the person who saved him from a burning Shadaloo laboratory using a similar technique. Upon being asked how he can do a sonic boom, Guile immediately becomes suspicious of Abel and demands to know if Abel knows of someone else who can use the move, with Guile's missing friend Charlie Nash being the only other one who can perform the sonic boom technique. Abel is offended that Guile would demand him to spill his secrets despite not even knowing him and silently challenges Guile to a fight, with Abel's knowledge of the mysterious sonic boom user on the line. The two fight, and Guile manages to defeat Abel, promptly demanding him to reveal his secrets. Accepting his loss, Abel tells his story to Guile. Assuming Abel's saviour to be Charlie, Guile offers to let Abel accompany him in the hope that the two can together discover the truth surrounding the fate of his friend. Abel accepts and the two depart together in search of Shadaloo and S.I.N. Sometime after parting ways with Abel, Fei Long is approached by the young Rindokan fighter Makoto, who recognises him as the famous movie star. Makoto challenges Fei Long to a fight, hoping that beating him will do wonders for Rindokan's reputation. Fei Long agrees to the fight despite not knowing what Makoto is talking about and engages her in battle where Makoto manages to defeat the famous fighter. Overjoyed at the press that her and the dojo will get from this, Makoto hurriedly leaves to continue on in the tournament. As she continues her mission to destroy both S.I.N and the remnants of Shadaloo, Delta Red operative Cammy White finds herself confronted by Crimson Viper. Having been warned of Viper's involvement by Chun-Li, Cammy demands that Viper get out of her way. At a stalemate, the two agents clash, with Cammy gaining the upper hand. Knowing that she has been defeated, Viper retreats to the shadows, leaving Cammy to wonder what other horrors S.I.N has up their sleeve. Sometime later, Cammy confronts Juri Han and vows that she'll pay for her continued torment towards her fellow dolls. Juri laughs at Cammy's confident challenge, telling her that she'll be the only one who'll pay for their sins, unless Cammy thinks her brainwashing by Shadaloo absolves her of the crime she committed as Killer B. Juri's words affect Cammy, but she manages to shrug them off in order to engage Juri in battle. The two fight, and Cammy is able to defeat Juri, who quickly retreats, having simply found joy in tormenting Cammy even more. With no other leads left, Cammy is forced to continue on alone. Sometime later, Juri manages to dodge an attack from M. Bison, having been aware that the dictator was stalking her. Impressed with her being able to dodge his attack, Bison tells Juri that she has grown quite strong. Juri is surprised that Bison has chosen to come after her himself, having thought he'd have sent one of his henchmen after her instead. Juri ignores Bison's threats to voice her dismay at not being able to save the main course for last, but decides to take the opportunity to defeat Bison here and now. The two clash in battle, with Juri being able to defeat Bison, but her victory is short-lived as Bison once again vanishes into his portal, leaving a dismayed Juri to continue on with her orders. While travelling through India in search of Ken Masters in order to defeat him and claim the title of the best fighter in America, Rufus encounters the great yoga master Dhalsim. Amazed at Dhalsim's ability to float through the air, Rufus assumes him to be an alien despite Dhalsim's claims that he can float thanks to the power of yoga. As Rufus rambles on, an exasperated Dhalsim distracts him by offering a fight, which Rufus accepts. The two battle and Dhalsim is able to defeat Rufus soundly. Rufus decides to move on in his search for Ken, leaving Dhalsim to his quest of retrieving his village's water in peace. Rufus eventually runs into the musician DJ as the two blindly ramble over each other. Eventually, DJ challenges Rufus to a fight, to which he accepts. The two battle and DJ too is able to defeat Rufus, who once again quickly leaves to continue his search for Ken. After leaving his mother to enter the tournament, Blanca briefly parts from his friends Sakura Kasugano and Dan Hibiki, eventually running into the luchador chef El Fuerte. The two get into each other's faces as Blanca tells Fuerte that only bad men hide their faces behind masks. Fuerte, offended by Blanca's slandering of his mask, challenges Blanca to a fight, to which Blanca accepts. The two clash and Blanca is able to defeat Fuerte. Accepting his loss, Fuerte continues his journey in search of the best recipes as Blanca returns to his friends. Before Blanca can reunite with Dan and Sakura, however, Dan stops Sakura to tell her that the time has come for them to do what fighters must do. Sakura, realizing that Dan wants to fight her, but not realizing that Dan still considers her his student, accepts Dan's offer. A tearful Dan faces Sakura in battle, telling her that he'll make it quick and painless for her. The two fight, and Dan manages to defeat Sakura, who mistook the serious challenge as a playful spar. Following her loss, Sakura decides to briefly leave Dan and Blanca in order to find Ryu, but promises to return soon. El Fuerte, meanwhile, encounters Zangief, aware of his legend as the Red Cyclone of Russia. Introducing himself as the Hurricane of the Gulf of Mexico, Fuerte challenges Zangief to a fight, which the latter gladly accepts. Fuerte is able to defeat Zangief and gains what recipe knowledge he can get before parting ways with him. Sometime later, Fuerte runs into Thunderhawk and challenges him to a fight, claiming to be a lot stronger since the two last met. T-Hawk tells Fuerte that he hasn't changed judging by his attitude and that he clearly still has more to teach him. The two fight, and T-Hawk still proves to be the stronger fighter. Disheartened but still determined to finish his journey, Fuerte leaves T-Hawk and continues his travels, where he eventually meets Edmund Honda. Honda, aware of Fuerte's occupation as a chef, offers to grab some food with him after a fight, to which Fuerte accepts. The two fight and Fuerte once again loses. However, he gains immense knowledge for his growing list of recipes after eating Honda's infamous Chanko stew. After parting ways with El Fuerte, Honda eventually runs into his old friend Hakan. The two greet each other and fill the other in on their current goals. However, the two's friendly handshake becomes tenser and tenser as they argue about which of their fighting styles is the greatest. Eventually, a fight breaks out between the two, with Hakan being the winner. The two decide to put their differences aside, however, and resume their journeys. Not long after his clash with Honda, Hakan comes across Crimson Viper, who comments that she thought Hakan would be taller based on his file. Hakan takes offense to Viper's comments and challenges Viper to a fight, which disappoints her as she had considered Hakan for recruitment. Deciding that he isn't worth hiring, Viper tries to leave but is stopped by Hakan. Viper finally relents and agrees to Hakan's fight, telling him that he'll regret challenging her. Viper and Hakan clash in battle, with Viper handily defeating him. Disappointed in having wasted her time, Viper leaves Hakan behind to continue on in the tournament. While smelling one of his roses, Dudley is confronted by Balrog, who has briefly skipped out on watching over the rest of Bison's replacement bodies. Balrog is surprised that a wimp like Dudley is the British boxing champion and challenges him to a fight. Dudley, however, admonishes Balrog for his rudeness, but still accepts his challenge and takes him on in a boxing match. Dudley is able to defeat Balrog, however, infuriating the brutish boxer, who is forced to stew over his loss as Dudley continues on in the tournament. Sometime after leaving Dan and Blanca behind, Sakura Kasugano accidentally runs into Ibuki, who is still choosing to skip out on a ninja clan's training camp. Sakura apologizes for not being careful and offers to help Ibuki up, but Ibuki instead notices Sakura's training gloves and realizes that she is a fellow fighter. Ibuki asks Sakura to introduce her to some cool boys if she defeats her in a fight. Sakura accepts despite finding the request odd, having thought of just the guy to introduce Ibuki to. The two young fighters then clash, with Ibuki being the victor. Despite Sakura's offer to introduce her to someone, Ibuki has to decline the offer as she realizes that she's going to be late for the training camp and quickly leaves. As he travels through Metro City following his escape from jail, Cody Travers is soon confronted by his best friend Guy, who asks Cody why he's going after S.I.N, but Cody simply tells Guy that he doesn't need a reason to go after them. Guy tells Cody that Seth is an evil man that brings chaos to the world, and asks Cody if he'll fight Seth alongside him. Cody once again tells Guy that he still chooses to fight by himself these days before challenging Guy to a fight. Guy, disappointed in his best friend's choice to continue walking the path he's on, agrees to Cody's challenge and faces him in battle. The two friends clash, with Cody being the winner. Accepting that he cannot force Cody to walk a path that he doesn't want to walk on, Guy leaves Cody to his own devices and continues his hunt for Seth and S.I.N. Having entered the tournament so that he can face his old friend Ryu in battle, Ken Masters stops at a diner where he is confronted by Rufus, who openly challenges Ken to a fight. Ken accepts, feeling that the encounter might be interesting. The two clash in battle, with Ken easily defeating Rufus. Shocked at his loss, Rufus quickly flees, leaving Ken to continue on in the tournament in search of Ryu. Around the same time, Ryu himself is faced by none other than his old nemesis Sagat, who once again hopes to face Ryu in battle so that he can find the answers he seeks. Sagat reminds Ryu of the promise of an even fight that they both made near the end of the Second World Warrior tournament, a promise that Ryu gladly keeps. Ryu and Sagat once again clash in a heated battle, but Ryu is able to defeat the former Emperor of Muay Thai. No longer seeking victory in the fight, Sagat is at peace with his loss and parts ways with Ryu, happy to have had the chance to spar with his fiercest rival yet again. As Sagat begins his journey home, he eventually runs into his former pupil Adon, who admires him for not running away from the fight as he had expected. Sagat, having wisened to the real journey of a warrior, attempts to guide Adon off the path he is on, calling the power he seeks twisted. Adon ignores Sagat's words and lunges at him, but Sagat effortlessly deflects Adon's attacks. Declaring that everyone will bow before him as a god, Adon once again tries to attack Sagat but is blocked, with the former emperor once again trying to warn Adon that his current path leads nowhere. After Sagat calls their fight pointless, Adon rebukes his warnings and challenges him to a fight. The two Muay Thai fighters clash, and Adon is able to gain the victory over his former master. Adon is ecstatic over finally proving his superiority as Sagat leaves to simply continue his journey home, unfazed by the loss. After having entered the tournament with the goal of fighting each other, Ryu and Ken finally meet for the first time since the previous World Warrior tournament. The two friends greet each other with a friendly fist bump and engage in their match, with Ryu being able to once again defeat Ken. However, unbeknownst to the two is that someone stands above them watching their fight. As the observer watches their fight with a nostalgic gaze to their training many years ago, the person is revealed to be none other than Ryu and Ken's master, Goken. Somehow alive after being thought to have been killed by his brother Akuma, Goken is impressed with his students' progress as well as their strong bond still remaining intact in the years since he has been gone. Goken, however, draws no satisfaction from simply observing his students and wishes to engage them in the ring once again. Having become aware of the growing rise in World Warriors since his supposed death, Goken uses the newly achieved power in preparation for entering the S.I.N tournament, with him hoping to see for himself how far his students have advanced. Goken continues to follow Ryu and Ken for a while as he laments that it has taken longer than he expected for him to regain consciousness. Realizing that Ryu and Ken both likely assume him to be dead, Goken feels that their assumption of his fate doesn't matter as he is simply excited at the idea of reuniting with his students. However, Ryu and Ken soon realize that someone is following them. After discovering that the person is their thought to be deceased master Goken, Ryu and Ken desperately chase after him in the hopes of finding out what truly happened to him. Goken, however, tries to avoid his students but soon finds himself confronted by them with nowhere to escape. Ken admonishes Goken for trying to leave without saying anything to them, but Ryu instead simply voices his pleasure in seeing Goken again, to Ken's surprise. Goken chastises the two for still calling him master, asking them if they'd rather fetch water from the well as they used to do in their training days. Ryu laughs at the memories of their training, once again to the annoyance of Ken. The interaction gets a joyous laugh out of Goken, who soon parts ways with the students, though he offers them a fight should they cross paths again. After also saying his farewell to Ken, Ryu continues his journey alone when he is suddenly approached by Rose, who tells Ryu that he is the last hope. Rose tries to convince Ryu to not proceed in the tournament any further, not wanting him to risk his life before he has the chance to defeat M. Bison for good. Ryu and Rose voice their displeasure in having to fight each other, but they leave themselves no choice and engage each other in battle. While Rose is able to defeat Ryu, the latter stands his ground and continues on his journey. Now determined more than ever to finish Bison before Ryu can risk his life, Rose rushes to her next destination when she is stopped by Guy. Guy warns Rose about the folly of sacrificing one's life, already aware that Rose once again intends to kill herself in order to defeat Bison. Rose cannot face Guy's words and demands he let her pass, but Guy refuses by taking a fighting stance. The two clash and Guy is able to defeat Rose. Despite his warnings, however, Rose sees no other way of defeating Bison and forces herself past Guy in order to continue her quest. As he continues on his journey following his clash with Rose, Ryu is eventually met by Sakura, who has finally tracked him down after not having seen him in years. Ryu asks Sakura if she has been practicing since they last met, to which Sakura offers him to fight her if he wants to find out. Ryu accepts Sakura's challenge and engages her in battle, to which Sakura is the victor of. The two briefly catch up before parting ways, with Ryu continuing on in the tournament and Sakura returning to Dan and Blanca. Still stewing over his loss to Dudley, Balrog huddles on a street at night when he is suddenly confronted by Chun-Li, who has managed to track him down. Chun-Li tries to arrest Balrog, but the boxer simply laughs at being able to let off some steam against the trapped Chun-Li. Balrog defeats Chun-Li but decides to let her live in a moment of mercy, feeling that even alive there is nothing that she can do to stop him. After Balrog leaves her to return to his watch of the replacement bodies, Chun-Li continues her investigation when she is eventually met by Vega, who throws a rose at her. Chun-Li is shocked, having thought that Vega was dead based on a rumour that spread following the Second World Warrior tournament. Vega taunts her by suggesting that he's a ghost, but Chun-Li ignores him and places him under arrest, to Vega's annoyance as he takes her on in a fight. Vega ends up being the victor, and 2 leaves Chun-Li to live with her losses. Despite losing both leads, Chun-Li soon leaves to tackle Seth and S.I.N head-on at their base. Following his loss to Jury, M. Bison keeps to the shadows as he observes the ongoing tournament. Eventually, Bison comes across Crimson Viper and confronts her, with Viper sarcastically claiming it to be an honour to finally meet him in person. Bison, not interested in who Viper is, instead voices intrigue in the S.I.N technology she uses in her suit and demands she give it to him in payment for letting her live. Viper denies Bison's request, leading to the dictator shedding his cloak and challenging her to battle for it. The two clash, and Bison defeats Viper, but she manages to escape before he can finish her off. Tired of observing fighters and playing games with those he sees as beneath him, Bison finally decides it's time to draw the tournament to a close and goes to confront Seth directly. As Ryu too makes his way to S.I.N's headquarters, he is met by none other than Akuma, who is laid in wait for Ryu to succumb to the same murderous intent that he accepted long ago. However, Akuma voices his disappointment in Ryu still not having transcended humanity, telling him that he lacks discipline. Rejecting Akuma's words, Ryu tells him that he hasn't transcended humanity at all, but instead thrown it away. Tired of his denial, Akuma channels the Satsui no Hado within him and engages Ryu in battle. The two fighters clash, and Akuma is once again the victor. Despite having the chance of killing Ryu laid in front of him, Akuma instead decides to let him live, in the hope that Ryu will soon accept the Dark Hado within him and provide Akuma with the challenge he so desires. After Akuma leaves and he comes to, Ryu decides to press on with his journey and face Seth. Seth meanwhile gathers the remaining 26 replica bodies in his base of operations. After defeating the 21st replica body in order to retain his dominance over them all, Seth destroys it when it calls him 15. Claiming that he is unique and not a toy that blindly follows Bison's orders like the rest of them, Seth warns the other replica bodies that the punishment for defying him is death as he retreats deeper into the base. Seth then sends the other replacement bodies to hinder the incoming fighters who've arrived to stop him. One such replica body waits by the police machine for Ryu, who is the first to arrive. Impressed that Ryu has made it as far as he has, the replica body drops down to face Ryu, telling him to show him the full extent of his power as they face each other in the finals of the S.I.N tournament.
We await your return, warrior.